So if you watched my yesterday, I did a stream with the 3 Degrees Audio Bygones, which is this little box. This little box right here. And in the process, it occurred to me that lots of other things were going on the board that people might be interested in learning more about. And, well, one of the things that at the heart of my board, you've got this this Pladosk Matrice parallel mixer. And they're sold by Knut over in Norway. They release a batch every few months. And those of you who watch Andy Othling knows that he's using 2 of them. And I just got my second one. I had a second one months and months ago, and it exploded my brain trying to figure out how to use it, so I passed it along. And actually, Andy's got my second one. Well, but there's a new batch out, so a lot of people are getting their matrices, trying to set up parallel mixing scenarios for the first time. I'm thinking about how to do my 2 matrice setup, and in preparation for that, I thought I'd walk through and document what the existing setup is all about. So you can see here, it's 2 stories. It's way out of hand. It's way, way, way out of hand. 2 floors, and it's all on this little rolling wire cart. It's $50 off Amazon. It exactly fits my Pedalboard Pro with an upper and a lower level. So what's going on here? Very first thing is we come into this 29 pedals. It's called a Una Elite Unity amplifier. It's a buffer, and it has 3 little toggle switches to sweeten your signal and improve harmonics. You kind of set it up and forget it. Very cool. From there, got the little smallest Polytune Ehx Base9. It has settings for bass. It's a bass synthesizer pedal, basically. It gives you a nice precision bass sound. It gives it a nice bowed bass sound. And I use this in lieu of a baritone or a bass 6 or a bass guitar or something. I just get I like this. It does a little cello sound. We'll run through it later, I think. Old Blood Noise Fault V2, my only drive. And then I go into the Walrus Acs-1. I had tried a Strymon Iridium. The Strymon Iridium, I think, is preferable if you want some drive. I think that if you want Marshall emulation, something like that, Strymon's nice. If you want clean, I prefer the Walrus. And the pedal, if you care about the inputs and output layouts, it might drive your decision. This has them on the side. The Iridiums are on the top. And then, so I come in guitar straight into the Una. It wants to be the first thing in your chain, buffering and all that. And then this the nano on the lower, in the basement here, is kind of the basic guitar tone. Then from there, I've got the Boomerang 3 that what I'll do there is use that to just cue up loops that are going to be fed into the pedal board. Andy, again, I'll mention Andy a lot here because I've stolen a lot of things from him, and everybody has kind of collaborated in his Discord and in his chat to come up with lots of concepts that different people have implemented in different ways. This is one of the concepts I implemented, which is putting the looper up. Well, I've copied him. Many of us are doing the same thing these days with the looper up front. So Boomerang 3 up front to just record little loops to get fed through the board. And that's what's in the basement. Oh, other things, the Ehx 8-step down here. It's completely standalone. You plug it in, and then it gives an expression signal out. You can program 8 different levels of that expression signal. It's another thing that evolved on Andy's streams, is using that to drive the ramping on other pedals. And we'll refer back to that 8-step up when we get to the upper floor. Another thing down here is, well, we've got a little one-spot CS7 of its own down below, power conditioning in the back, and then a little board brain patch bay that I use to tie into my Eurorack system. You can basically tap out to that, and it comes up later in the Matrice loops. They run out to that little patch bay and then back into up to the board. And if you want to plug your modular in, you can tap the signal out there. But as long as nothing's plugged into that patch bay, it's just a straight pass through. We won't be getting into that at all in this walkthrough. So let me reconfigure the camera here a little bit. And pull this out. And we'll try to move some cables around. Sorry for the pain and shakiness. All right, you can't see the whole board, but we can roll it around. From the lower level, let me also grab a guitar here. All right, I'm going to record a little throwaway loop. Let that go. All right. Hope the volume is balanced all right with that. Everything goes through the, well, let's hear. You won't be able to see it, but I'll turn on the Base9 down below. Although I just realized this is the kind of thing you forget when you're under pressure. The looper is after the little underneath board, so changing those pedals down below doesn't affect the signal in the loop. One of the drawbacks of the current configuration. The first thing that you get after the loop is the Superego Plus. And what I'm using the Superego Plus for mainly is killing attack. You have control over attack, decay, and how many layers you're stacking up. I generally keep it around 10 and 2 layers at around 1, and you just get this nice attackless droniness. There is an effects section of the Superego Plus. I rarely use it. If I do, it's often for a filter. So from the Superego Plus, we go down into the Matrice. And I'm going to come back to the Matrice. I'm not going to talk about the Matrice at all yet. Coming out of the Matrice, I go all the way down to this Boss EQ200 down in the corner, which is a full graphic equalizer with level control as well. And that just lets me do EQ of all the mono signal stuff that's going on off the Matrice, off all the mono effects on the bottom 2 rows here. If I get these drony mid-frequency drony mids, I can either accentuate or kill them off before we go into the stereo effects. From the EQ, we go back to the Compressor Pro. And again, I ripped off Andy on this. And I'm using the Compressor Pro as a limiter. Right, so I can control gain. then the threshold lets me set a max, basically. Attacks all the way down, releases all the way down, ratio is maxed out. So all we're doing is saying, don't go any louder than whatever the threshold is set at. And that's really helpful when you get the weird gain staging going on in the Matrice. We might run into that where if we get into a situation where the compressor is actually kicking in, I'll try to call it out. Maybe somebody can notice it and remind me. But normally it's not an issue. Alright, let me catch up with chat. Baker's rack is genius. It took a long time to find the right size rack and the right height, and this one's actually slightly adjustable. It's that the classic setup where it has these little posts on the corner with plastic insets so you can move the two shelves up or down. I'll try to remember to link to it in the description. I'm gonna export this over to YouTube just so it's more accessible, and I'll try to link to things like that there. Cool, nice. Only one Condor. Unfortunately, yes, they discontinued the Condor before I could get a second one. How many immersed bloopers, etc. caps matrices he has? That you'll see them all here. Well, you won't see them all here. And how many no road worn or relic guitars, no custom shop stuff, nothing like that. Shelf liners. I have a shelf liner on the bottom for the pedal board, for the looper, but not on the top, and that's not really going to work out for them. But it's nice because I can just go straight down. The cables can just go straight down where they need to either the lower board or to the looper. It kind of opens it up so it's almost a 3D rack. Okay, so where were we? Compressor Pro. Compressor Pro is the last thing in the mono signal chain. You'll recall we come into the mini down below, we got to the looper down below, Superego. Superego's off to Matrice. Lots of stuff happens in Matrice. Then we go EQ compression, or limiter. When we're done with the Compressor Pro, we come out to this little JHS powered splitter. That's the last place you see mono. From the splitter, we go two places. We go to the Polymoon, and we go to the Microcosm. Polymoon goes into Immerse, and then Immerse and Microcosm both go into this little exotic custom shop stereo X blender thing. It's discontinued. It's the only thing I could find that would really let you combine two stereo signals in a kind of a dynamic way. At one point I had a little black box with no volume controls on it that would just do a unity combination. But this I find is awesome because, let's see if I can show you why. You have to, there's an empty head of a lava solderless cable in the actual input jack. Then all I'm using is the returns from loops 2 and 3. So the small knob here is the level for loop 2, which is the main signal path. And then the big knob is microcosm. Microcosm's not doing much now. I'll turn the activity way up. Repeats way up. And let's hit it a little harder. So there's your microcosm. And if we want to kill microcosm, that's it. So this lets us take advantage of the microcosm's stereo-ness and reverb, stereo reverb, without having to, so you don't have to put it in the mono chain. We go into the little mixer, and then that goes off. You can see the little patch cables headed off to, right now it's going into my Eurorack case, oddly enough. And then I do more mixing and looping there, not a topic for today. So that's the overview, right? So we've got little board below, mono comes up to Superego, Superego to Matrice, Matrice, after Matrice we do EQ and limiting, and then we go either We'll turn the microcosm off. We'll come back to this, but Polymoon I pretty much always just leave in the very first of the modes that gives you ping pong. The higher ping pong modes give you like 4 or 5 repeats, these rhythmic patterns with repeats on each side. But I just use it in the first ping pong basically. And then dimension, it's usually hanging out here, which really kind of alleviates the need for any reverb. The dimension smears the repeats together, so it gets this reverby feel to it. You throw it down at the bottom. Let's turn off the Superego. And that's just basic maxed out time, ping pong reverb, mix. I use mixes always in this 2 o'clock to maxed out range here. If I want to do really, really wide stuff, that goes up top. Otherwise it hangs out there. Multiply, not too crazy. Dimensions, yeah, you can hear just with the not killing any attack of the Superego Plus, you get this smear from dimension. And then it does all sorts of wacky phaser modulation stuff that I have not kind of gotten into that. Just a ping pong, gives some width. And then if you add the immerse on top, it's just a hall. I'll turn the ping pong off. Not crazy, just a nice subtle hall with a relatively low mix and moderately high decay, I'd say. But you do that, you do Polymoon, and then anything in a little bit of a loop. We'll add some microcosm up there. And then you just kill the attack with the Superego Plus and your ambienting, right? Superegos. No, that was microcosm getting a little weird. So let's dial back activity on the microcosm. Let's get rid of microcosm for now, and we'll even turn off the stereo stuff and talk about Matrice. All right, this is straight. This is how my Matrice is set up. Matrice in general. I've got to make sure I'm all situated here with the microphone and everything, because this is gonna be mind bending to try to explain. Actually, it's not that hard to understand. It's hard to explain. 4 inputs coming in on the right side, 4 outputs going out on the top. Each knob controls how much of the input goes out the corresponding output. So this first brown knob controls how much of this lower input is sent out on the rightmost output. These 4 knobs control how much of each of those 4 inputs goes out on the right output. I come in with a clean signal on the bottom input. The eventual summed, you could call it the clean output, comes out the leftmost output. So I think of this as being the clean path. The clean comes in, heads out the top. So this knob controls how much clean input goes to the final output. Similarly, the knobs on the bottom row control how much of the clean signal goes to the yellow loop, green loop, and brown loop. The yellow loop output is here, green loop output is here, brown loop output is here. So, and then to keep some symmetry here, the yellow loop input is the second one up. The yellow loop, the green loop input is the third one up, and the brown loop input is the fourth one up. So one thing to remember here is the only diagonal you ever want to touch is the one in the lower left-hand corner, because that's how much clean goes to the final output. If you touch at either of these other corners or diagonals, this is how much of the yellow loop input goes to the yellow loop output, and you'll immediately kind of blow up and get feedback, and as you might expect, it's not enjoyable. All right, so what's in each loop here? My yellow loop is everything to the left of the microcosm, which I kind of think mentally of as my reverb loop. We've got a sunlight reverb, dark star reverb, and slow reverb with a condor at the end to do, it's a chase bliss condor, so you can do ramping. This lets you set up, like a filter sweep is the most common way that I use this. I don't know if I have it set up that way for right now. Let's go ahead and we'll send, we'll send clean input to the yellow loop. Right, so this is dry input. This is the guitar input to the yellow loop output. We aren't hearing anything. Well, why is that? Well, we need to send the yellow output to the final output. And you'll remember we go white, yellow, green, brown. This is clean, yellow, green, brown. So yellow loop input going to the final output is this knob right here. If we turn that up, sure enough, we hear nothing on right now, but we do hear it. And since there's no other reverb on right now, just throw the slow on. And lo and behold, turn the condor off. There is our, that's just all you're hearing right now is slow. If we turn up how much clean guitar is sent to slow, that makes it louder. If we turn how much of slow is sent to the final output, that makes it louder. And then I use the slow basically in either dream or dark mode to either give it an octave down. Let's turn our compression. Oh, no, I see the problem. I usually leave the compressor output at unity, but I need to turn, this is typically up in this range here. Microcosm is off. So slow, we won't go into slow too much. It adds texture. Both the dark star and slow I typically use for texture. But the sunlight has a unique property that you've seen if you watch Andy's stream, where the input knob can be controlled by the input knob determines whether or not, let's just do that really quick here. The input knob determines whether or not any of the signal that's coming into the pedal is affected, passes through. So if the input knob is all the way down, you have a reverb going on, but you're not driving it at all. It'll fade away and eventually go away. So you turn the input up, it comes through. So there, if we have the decay maxed out, we turn input up briefly. We are basically capturing whatever's coming through on the input and holding it until, well, with decay maxed out, it'll never go away. But you can. Now, remember we have that 8-step down below. It's walking through these 8 expression pedal settings. If you, let's see if I can. Oh, I don't have it. On a long enough cable to bring up top, but you can just barely see there. You've got 4 sliders that are up and 4 sliders that are down. And if we hit play, you can see the little red light progressing, and it's frozen now. And then the light goes red, and you can get pick up the input. Let's turn down the slider, turn down the rate a little. There, got some input. Now it's going to be frozen for a while. Now we'll get input again. So it's a sample and hold, effectively. So you throw that in, and if you're not satisfied with the texture there, I might throw the slow on. Just massage it a little bit more. And then the condor right now is set up to do a filter sweep, I believe. Yeah, I think you can just barely hear. Oh, yeah, the fading in and out is the filter sweep on the condor. Again, if you want to see somebody else using this constantly day to day, filter sweeping, the 8-step. Just again, I should throw in a link to Andy Othling's lowercase noises streams. There, the condor just completely went away. All right, so that's the reverb channel. That's the yellow channel of the Matrice. Let's take that out. Green channel of the Matrice is what I kind of call the delay section. Therme, mood, because I usually use it as a reverse octave down delay, and then generation loss, which right now is really almost exclusively another filter. It does not make any sense to be using one of these as a filter, a ramping filter, but such is life. They quit making the Condor. That's the logical place for a second Condor if they still made them. So what do we do? How do we send, in your head, figure out how we send dry to the green loop? If you guessed sending dry input to the green loop, you are correct. And then how do we hear the green loop? This is dry, yellow loop, green loop. And there we get our reverbs. Well, it's not reverbing, so let's throw some Therme. Good old Therme. Just catching up on chat. Mookie, yes, I think you're right. I think SaturnWorks could probably build something like that. And it's the stereo filter. I think you were talking about the stereo filter, the exotic stereo filter. I think you're, not filter, but the mixer. I think you're right, and I should probably pursue some other option. It's kind of overkill. It's big for what it's doing and takes up a lot of real estate, particularly if you're thinking about trying to put a second Matrice on the board. So, Therme, mood, right now it's set to do octave down reverse delay. So that's it doing that. Generation loss, I won't bother with the filter sweep right now. But that's the green loop, that's delays. And then again, we've got parallel mixing, so we can do, let's listen to both the sunlight freezing the reverb and Therme doing some delay stuff. And it sounds like a mess. Sort of. It's not the greatest loop for this, for demonstrating this. But we can throw Polymoon on it and throw Immerse on it, and now I can just sit back and let the big ambient streaming bucks roll in. Or maybe not. Alright, so moving on. Turn these off again. Turn everything off. Oh, turn everything off. Alright, so that is, yellow loop is reverbs, green loop is delays. Let's talk about the brown loop. The brown loop is loopers. And I'm going to have to, alright, I might have to relocate the camera a little bit here. Bear with me. All right, I think we're gonna, let's get this locked in place here. All right, well, we're gonna roll with this. Loopers, brown loop is loopers. Now, the brown loop goes to this Cooper FX signal path selector. What the Cooper FX box lets you do is have two separate signal paths, and you can either run them A and to B. It's another parallel looper. You can either run A into B, you can have them in parallel, or you can run B into A. Now, the stuff on the right of the signal path selector is in the blue loop. The stuff on the left is in the red loop. Let me reposition this here. One more try at camera position. Again, I'm sorry if it makes you sick. Much better. This will work. All right. Got to clamp off the little boom thing here. All right, there we go. All right, so this is blue side, this is red side. Blue side, I started off with an Capistan and a blooper on each side. I don't want to get into why I have two bloopers. Let's just not talk about number of pedal counts or anything like that. There's a logical explanation, trust me. Bygones, I went through the whole Bygones video yesterday. I'm actually not going to touch Bygones much at all today. But the reason I have the two looper setups here is because with the Cooper FX unit, you can change the order of the two looper sections. You can either have it in parallel, or you can record something in A and basically mix it down to B, and then flip the order, send what's on B back out through the other loops, and then record it onto A. You can get all crazy. I haven't mastered that quite yet, but that's the idea. Put something onto either blue or red, either bounce it, apply some effects on the blooper that you then imprint into. Let's just do this so you see what I'm talking about. All right, so we've got we're going to send the clean signal to the brown loop, the loopers loop, and then let's listen to the loopers. We've got that same pathetic little set of 3 chords going through Superego Plus. Let's see. I'm going to take a second to catch up on you. Roll and just start talking. Explorers drip, spamming. Sorry, I'll look at that later and see if. Did that time you out? Oh no, it just warned you. All right. Alrighty, I think that was the Worm Wizard vibe comment. We're caught up. All right, so. Loops. We're hearing nothing right now because neither side is on. We turn on the red side, and that's Bygones. I've got Bygones doing a crazy, wacky warp right now, just so you can recognize that it's doing something. That's Bygones warping. We could turn that back off. Turn on the red loop, and you should hear. Let's turn off the Superego Plus. So you've got just Capistan in delay mode. Now I'm going to move Bygones off the screen here so we can come to. Chat's going to interfere with the blooper. All right, 2 loopers. Capistan is just a delay. Bygones is over here being warbly and wacky. And we can run that in parallel. So you got wacky, warble, and also delay, but dry is turned way down. I have a hard time tracing through what's doing what here. But they're in parallel right now. This lets us go warbly, wacky stuff into delay. Let's go all mix. See if we can pick that up. So this should be warbly stuff delaying. Warbly's delaying. We can switch it around, and now it should be warbly delays, or no, delayed warblies. No, it's warbly delays. Let's turn time up higher so we can see you hear the repeats going pitch warble. And we can go back to warbles first, delayed. And now that when they're in series, if you turn down either loop, you're not gonna. It's not allowing anything to pass through, other than dry. Turn dry back down. So this isn't allowing. Nothing from A is going through to B. this is delayed warblies. This is warbly delays, where the repeats are warbly. Does the Matrice let you EQ each channel? No, it doesn't. That's kind of why I have the boss at the end, because and why you end up with a condor in one channel and a generation loss in another channel. And one of the settings I use in the blooper is always the filter mod, so that you can get EQ per channel EQ, and then the boss at the end lets you even everything out. And the switch on the Matrice here lets you change the phase of that loop if you run into issues where one of your loops is putting things 180 degrees out of phase. You can adjust that with, you can compensate for that with the phase loop at the top. So this is warbly, this is sickening. Let's get rid of it a little bit. I think that's it, right? So we go into the downstairs board. Downstairs board gives me guitar tone. Guitar tone goes into the looper. The looper comes up to the Superego where we kill delay if we want to. Come into the Matrice where you get either the reverb loop, the delay loop, or the looper loop. Then we go into EQ and limiting, and then split out into Polytune or Immerse for the clean stereo, or microcosm for the microcosm stereo. That's it. Anybody have any questions? Let me think a little bit. Oh, the board brain patch panel that I mentioned earlier. The patch bay. What I do with that is after the right loop here, from this blooper gets sent down there, and then we come back from there back into the Matrice. So that lets me send anything that's in this right loop off to the Eurorec. Or anything in the Eurorec can come into the board at that point. I'll just let that sink in. I'm probably going to revise my Eurorec setup a little bit and run actually 2 different routes out to the board, but that's done. I'll do another stream on that. Let's turn up Polytune. Press some Immerse on. And I'm going to reverse a good trick here is just reverse whatever you got going on in the boomerang. And now I can sit back and let the ambient big bucks roll in. So the Cooper is basically a very versatile ABY with parallel capabilities. Yes. It reminds me, it feels a little bit like the fade out instead of reverse. Yeah, that should reverse. There we go. Yeah, the Cooper FX. It's a cool ABY with the ability to switch the order and control levels, I would say. And it's 2 effects loops really. So it's I would say it's maybe closer to a signal blender, the old blood noise signal blender. It's like a signal blend. Well, signal blender on steroids, I would say. And it's what makes me think I maybe don't need a second Matrice. But we'll see. That may be the next thing that happens is this gets ripped up and this gets replaced with a second Matrice. Who is it that made the Swiss things? Is that Walrus or is that Earthquaker? They have something that I think might be similar to this, but maybe without the ability to swap the paths around. Just reminds me of a device they had. So I talked about, just looking at things, thinking about what I talked about, I didn't talk about. Oh, here, let me show you the ABY. Not the ABY, the Base9. Let's not play the loop. Through here, we'll turn off the microcosm for now. We'll just send clean through, stop the loop. So there's guitar. If we turn the Base9 on, this is the precision bass setting. So I like that. That's the precision bass setting. The other setting I use is the bowed bass. Bowed bass. There's some noise in this one that I can't get out, which is I haven't used it a lot lately. I don't know if the guitar is coming through acoustically through the mic, but let's just do that. Let's loop that a little. Not sure why you're hearing. Oh, because on the Bass6 you have the option of, or the Bass9 you have the option of sending out both the wet and the dry. Messing with the volume knobs a little here. You get the idea. So you throw that on. Let's let microcosm eat that for a while. So this is no dry, it's just what microcosm is doing to that. Except it does this is the 2 octave down. I think it's 2 octaves down and 2 octaves up, which makes it kind of a mess. That's it. I think that's pretty much all there is to it. 47 minutes. Let's see if we can do anything with this. How about some Therme pitch matching up. No, let's do some blooper here. You'll notice there's no blooper in the output signal. So what are we going to get here? We're going to get some blooper. We've got bygones. This bygones is still on over here in the corner. That's going to be interesting when we bring it back in. And the Capistan's in delay mode here. So what is that giving us? Let's turn up the mix on the poly mode. So we're going to add mode on the bloopers so we can record some of the pitch changes. It's all starting to come through. Switch it over to filter mode a little here, and then some highs out. The cap's not really doing anything. Instead of the straight through clean, let's run it through the slow channel over here. Oh no, let's do Dark Star and pitch it up. Get some more higher register stuff. Still lights on, so it's the 8 step is affecting the throughput. We don't need that. It's droning enough, it's not going to matter. And then we have the boss over here. So you can just go ahead and just totally kill the low end. That's the thing. stuff doing a thing. Let's see if that original loop's still in here. Looking with the boomerang. This just brings up just the clean loop from the boomerang. Base 9 loop. I think we've got that in the loop now. Right, so we've got that base 9 frozen in the looper, which means I want to put the other, I guess it was just the 3-chord loop into the other looper, right? So send with the clean input going into the looper strain. Should only be recording that clean loop. All right, let's turn everything else down and see what's in the reverb out, take the clean out. We're only listening to the loop, but the clean is still going to the loop, so we'll turn that down too. So now what we're listening to is only what's coming from the two loopers, but we're listening to both the blue and the red. So if we take the blue out, we've got nothing but that one reverse loop down below. Well, the microcosm. Let me turn the microcosm out. So that's just the clean loop. That'll be the very first thing we recorded reversed. Let's pitch it up. Well, actually, no, let's reverse it and pitch it up. Maybe leave it forward. That is reversed. And so now if I wanted to, I could take that, overlay it onto the base 9, and then free up this blooper for another little pitch shifty exploration. Let's do that. So we want, instead of in parallel, we want to, they're both in play mode, so nothing's recording right now. So let's have red go into blue. Let's record that And we could reuse this for something else.